Hey guys, it's Baileywiki and it's April 3rd of 2024. And this is a really awesome release. It's awesome across the board, 2D with the Circus and Carnival stuff. You'll find really interesting, compelling new maps and assets that you can use, whether you're on the Dungeondraft side or whether you're using it in Foundry VTT or another VTT. And on the 3D side, just really the coolest scenes that the 3D team has come up with yet. Everything from Efant, Sevro, Violet, stuff that Swift has produced from a props perspective. You're going to find super compelling ideas from what they're putting out. Just really, really useful maps that you could use right now in a campaign that will give you storytelling ideas, and also props and things that you will just find yourself wanting to design scenes with some of these new props because they're just so interesting. I did just launch a tutorial on mass edit. A lot of the prefab content, as you know, mass edit is part of the Baileywiki family now. It's a free module, but it is also the delivery mechanism for all the prefabs and presets that are coming out with this release. So you're going to want to watch that tutorial video. There is new functionality with mass edit that's super awesome. Be able to see like previews of prefabs when you set them, to resize them and to rotate them. It was just really awesome work from Adif, who's the developer of mass edit, and just makes for a delightful experience. I built this entire Foundry Basic release using mass edit, and just being able to search my entire library with a couple of clicks is just really, really outstanding. It was a lot of fun to work with. So I recommend checking out that tutorial. Jump around through the timestamps depending on what applies to you. I do recommend checking out things like some of the new 3D scenes, even if you're not a 3D subscriber. I think just, kind of knowing the state of the art and like what this team is producing right now is probably going to be interesting to you. And with that, hopefully you guys enjoy this release, and let's jump into it. Okay, so where you're going to find the new stuff, obviously the 3D is always updated every month. If you are an advanced tier Patreon, go ahead and update your Baileywiki 3D module. You're also going to update your Baileywiki Maps Premium and Towns modules. Those will get the majority of the new content and the new scenes updated. And then you're going to update Baileywiki Mass Edit and also Nuts and Bolts. Those are both free modules, but they have a lot of functionality, and also deliver all of the prefabs and presets for this particular release and all releases going forward. And then most of the new tiles are in the Modular City District 1. There's a new Circus and Carnival folder in there that has a lot of the tiles that you'll need. Once you update all of those, most of your scenes are going to be in the Baileywiki Modular Scenes Compendium in your Baileywiki content. And then all of your presets are going to be in the presets, the Mass Edits preset browser. If you open that up, if you go to the all and just type in new, you will see all of the new presets, whether they're token-based, tile-based. You can see there's quite a bit in this release. And I did just do that whole tutorial that came out today on how to use the Mass Edit preset browser. So check that out. We'll be going through what's in all of these here in just a moment. Okay, so we'll start with the inventory scenes. This is cages, nets, rugs, pillars, pitch roofs, all sorts of stuff that's kind of extra stuff. You can see you've got different cages. These are listed as tile presets. So what that means is if you open up your Mass Edit browser and just look for cages, for example, or cage, you can see we have a metal cage here. And if you turn on your asset brush, you can see you can paint it on randomly. You can Once you paint on one, you can just follow the path to see where the others are. And so you have lots of other cages and other things that you can place down once you follow those. We have different tiles for nets. We also have rugs. And if we go into our tile preset and look for rug and we paint one of these in, you'll notice it's called multi. That means once it's on the screen, you can right click it and you can change that rug type to any other type. And of course, you can scale it up and down using quick scale is what I'm using here. It's a free module. And you have lots of other kinds of rugs, right? And these happen to be colorable. So once you put that in place, you can right click it, try different varieties, and then you can color anything as usual with red. You can color that in another color. So all your red pixels will change color. We also have bleachers and stands. You can use these to assemble your own interiors for the tents that you'll see here later in the release. We also have these really nice regular and then colorable overhead tiles for roofs. And you can go in here and just search for roof, and you can find your these tiles in here. If you paint them in, they will come in with the overhead settings that you need to make them like an always visible roof. So you can make this sort of illusion of towers and things inside of your scenes and just make them larger or smaller. We've got some pillars as well. These are wooden pillars, also come in a tile preset. And you can see this one's called random, so it'll paint in these pillars randomly. And then you can also just paint this set in. That will just get it into your scene. They're already pre-configured to be overhead tiles, and you can do things with those. We have some new audio loops. The Michael Gelfi audio loops are really great. This the Setessa Market is the new one from Michael Gelfi. And we've got some great laughs as well. And then there's also some other ones that we used for like trampolines and other things that you guys will see here in a bit. The tents are really great. You can see lots of different tents. All the red ones are colorable, of course. These ones that are colored have already been tinted, so you can actually change the color of really any of these. I think except for maybe this one, they all have red coloring. And then they all have interiors as well. Some of these blank ones are special though. They have Monk's Active tiles attached to them. So if you drop them in and you double click, you can randomize the interiors just in case you want like a really quick interior where you don't need to put any tiles in or anything else. That's what those are there for. These work great to drag in and then resize. So if I turn my levels UI off and we look up tent, we go to our token version of it. If I double click, then I can drag one of these onto the scene. And because it's empty, I can really resize this. So if I hold down Alt, I can resize this tent very, very large or smaller than how it normally comes. And you can just rotate. Again, I do this, show you in this tutorial that came out today as well. So I recommend you check out the new features of Mass Edit that let you do these kinds of things. Then I just center mouse click to cancel out of that. Lots of fun interiors. This one, these are actually tiles. You can move these out and put something else in this interior of this tent. But we've got, a tavern here. This has some Monk's Active tiles where you can walk in and hear a tavern sound, but only temporarily, then it turns it off. You've got this like storage room sort of tent. You've got another tavern here. This is colorable, so you can make the theme of this any color that you'd like. Here's a stage where players can come in and watch some sort of stage or music. There's a little changing room in the back. Here's kind of an evil one, which you'll see in a scene later, where you've got, spiders and skulls, and you've got this like creepy clown statue. This one has cages. Your players can go inside of these cages. Those are overhead tiles. So you can put various beasts or lock your players up in these cages as well. Our fortune teller has sort of a foyer, and then the fortune teller room itself with a seat that your players can sit in. This is a hall of mirrors. We drop our players in. Let's reset the fog of war. And you can see your players can come in, but they can only go certain directions. So they have to find their way through just by, attempting to go. You can hide various bad guys in here. You can realize that some of this is a dead end. So your players can find their way all the way through, then ultimately get to this room in here where they can go through this curtain. And then you might put something in this room as well. Then there's this back door, kind of this back room. And if they go over to here, they find there's a one-way mirror where they can see who's coming in, or a bad guy can see who's coming in, but they can't see through from the other side. You can see it's blocked off that way. We also have different pieces. You can just drag these in as prefabs. So if we look up Circus, for example, we can see a lot of the different Circus things. So this These circles here, you can drag them in. There are separate tiles, so if you want, you can separate them and just have one circle. The circles themselves are multi-face tile enabled, so you can change them around, make them all the same color, that kind of thing. We have another feature. This is just the jousting wall, which you can find here. You've got your trapeze set, so your players can climb up with using levels, climb up to the top of this platform, and then they can trapeze across. For example, it doesn't actually animate. You can figure out animated ways to do that if you'd like. We've got the stage, which is colorable. Again, anything in red, you can make that a different color. And then we've got some fun items here. These are relatively simple. Zephyr made some more complicated ones, but I can walk over to this, and if I double click it, it will give me a random number from 0 to 20. So it can frustrate your players, let your strong players come in and get a bad score, let your weak players get a high score. You can find these here. This is actually a tile called a Circus Strength Test. So you can drag this out and it comes with those pieces. Another tile preset is the trampoline. As your player jumps on it, it'll give them a random height that they jump to, and it'll actually put them up that elevation. So just something fun your players can play around with. That's also under Circus. It's a tile preset. Again, if you forget if it's tile or whatever, just go to all. You can look up everything here and see all of your presets. You've also got a magic or a box where you can slide swords in, right? And you can make this different sizes. So you can put a player underneath it. It's actually built as a overhead tile, so you can hide your players underneath it. Same thing here with the basket. You can put your players inside, and then the tops of the basket are changeable, so you can put swords into it, that sort of thing. And then you've got like a snake version. You can hide a snake inside. All of these balls are also multi-face tile enabled. So if you pick one ball, you can just right click it. These are all here under tile presets. And then I've got a few new camping tents and these sort of tribal tents. These are really great for resizing to different sizes. They've already got interiors. This one happens to be colorable, and you can change these interiors. Those are actually just background tiles. So if I go to my background layer, we can turn on quick edit mode. You can see there's just components here that we can swap out for other things. If we just look up tent, grab one of our tribal tents. If I hold down Alt, I can, make these sort of bigger and smaller. Works really well. You might have to resize some of your interiors, but just heads up, really good stuff, very flexible. We also have lots of wagons, merchants, vendors, and general decor. You can see all the specialized wagons we have here. These are overhead tiles. You can't go into them, but you can go under their canopies and things, and they're just super flexible, resizable. You can create maps, the interior maps, to be able to go into these if you'd like to. But I just wanted to be able to drop in a lot of these kind of circusy tents and train cars and things like that. You also have wagons. This uses some of our wagon from past releases, but we add the wagon tops to them. So now you can change the tops not only with multi-face tiles, but it's also matte enabled. So if you right click it, it'll just randomly select from these different tops. Keep in mind, they are mostly all red in color. That means they will accept a certain level of recolorization. So some of them work better than others, of course. But you can see you can get some other colors to your scenes by doing that. Of course, you can take the tops off and just have the wagons internally, but these all kind of work the same. And then these down here are a little bit special. If you double click them, it changes the interiors as well. So if we look at the interior underneath this, we drag this out of the way. You can see the interior. Of course, you can just delete these, but this just lets you have both very large and small vendors that you can change just by double clicking. It just really helps you get some inspiration even and just randomize what you place into your maps. You can just find all of these under wagons. and they're all like right here, right? We also have vendors, and if you turn on levels, you can see that they're all levels enabled. And if you click on them and double click them, you can randomize them. You can change the tops. And then this vendor, everything changes. What they're selling, the tops, everything. So you can just drop in this vendor and everything works. And you can see the different types of vendors that you have available here. This is another one that's totally customizable. As you click it, it just changes everything, including the tops. And again, all the tops that are red are colorable. You've got some of those clown statues. If you right click it, you can see the rest of your options here. Lots of new barrels. These are set up in a way that you can paint them into the scene. I give these as an example in my tutorial, but if I look for barrel under my tiles and I turn on my painter, I can paint these barrels in a scene. Just hit Control Z if you get one that you don't like. And it does put a drop shadow in there too as well. And it mixes up some other things besides barrels just so you get some variety. You can do the same thing for this randomized painted barrel. These are more the size of a token. That's why you see them. We also have these bistro chairs. These are also just tile sets. So if I select my bistro chair and tables, it drops it in, gives it a random color. These are colorable. So if I delete the current color and I want to create something else, like if I want just a perfectly white table, I can do that. And it's also Monk's Active, or it's also multi-face tile enabled, so you can change the style as well. Even the chairs themselves, you can change the style. Some of them come with drop shadows, some of them don't. These curtains are all colorable. You'll find they're very flexible. And I really like these. These are all just these vendor stalls. These are super resizable, nice and detailed. You can see them in use in some of the sample scenes, but these are great for just spamming around a scene to give a bunch of detail really, really quickly. You can put them underneath other canopies and awnings and things. And again, you'll see in the sample scenes how we use those. Just to show you some of the scenes, this is actually a remastered scene using a bunch of the new tools. This is the Candle Alley, which is a past scene, now re-released. You can change the smoke styles and colors of awnings and things like that. You can see we have different roof styles now using some of the new tiles. Your players can make their way down this alley where Candle Alley is always lit, even at night, with the perpetual flame. And a GM can double click and be able to access this manhole and access to the sewer. It's just showing you what everything looks like now with like the newest assets. You can see all of the pieces in place to really make this feel like a city. And they can actually even enter some of these towers, right? And go all the way up to the top and even click that bell. Also remastered just the city streets and platforms, just again to show you all the newest stuff in play. This had some of the older facades in it for the last one. Now we've got new ones. And you're going to see some really cool stuff with cities here in next month's release. But this is just a super flexible map where you can change all of the roof colors, right? If I just go to my tile settings and I want to say, like, give me every kind of roof color, you can do that. Or if I want more of a just browns and grays, easy to switch. So this gives you something you just jump into and create a battle map around. These are all facades, although you can swap these out for actual buildings that your players can enter if you're trying to make this something more explorable. It just gives you an idea of how you can make maps of much larger scale. But again, stay tuned for next month's release to see even more. Your standard fare campsite made with all of the different pieces that you just saw in the release. A lot of it is interactable. You've got different notes for the scene that you can check out. And the scene looks great at night. It's the classic scene for your players to enjoy, explore, put NPCs around here, have battles, that kind of thing. The Carnival creature feature looks good also in both day and night. And it features some cool stuff, like this is one of the Mind Flayer pods that you saw in past releases. You can put things inside there. The idea is this is a bit of a freak show, right? Like players can come in here and see, other creatures and things that, like here's some creatures inside of these tanks. And maybe some of these break out, right? Maybe they do some battling or watch creatures fight each other, kind of a cockfight type of thing. And then they've got the cages that they can explore in here as well, where you can have more creatures sort of being captured, or your players themselves can be captured. And just realize that, you can have this in both the day and nighttime version. It works well for both. This is the same map, but you cannot actually enter any of these interiors. You can drop in another tent, however, and create your own interiors. So here you can just like delete these walls and then just drop in another tent on top of it. Right, make that a little larger. And this just lets you use these scenes, but change, what decisions I made, put something else in place. The Circus Big Tent is great. You can have your players come in here, enter from either side, and you've got, this sort of storage area and staging area, and then you've got this big open space in the middle. And you have this little thing here. If we hover over, it says drag a prefab in the margins to this to this spot, and then you can dismiss it if you want to. But let's grab one of these things in the margin, and we'll drag it in here. And if you drag this control handle exactly to that spot, it gives you 3 rings to your circus now. But if you wanted this to be, jousting instead of, a 3-ring circus, you can do that. And now you can have a jousting area. You can also have a stage. This is colorable. And you can have the trapeze as well. So just some fun things to do really quickly on the fly. These are all in the margins, so they're not seen by your players until you drag them in. Now, this is a really great map. This is the Fairgrounds template. This is the empty template. And this is something where it's really set up for you to drop in anything that you want. You can have this certainly be an big open space for skirmishes, but it's all set up to let you have some fun in this space. It does work in the daytime as well as night. And then I went and pre-built some ideas for you. So here is just a couple of tents that I dropped in the middle. You can drop in more if you'd like, but this is basically, your players come into this Hall of Mirrors. If they make their way into this ends up being an enclosed walkway. They can get into this other tent, which is where the fortune teller resides. Maybe that's a nefarious fortune teller, maybe not. But you can just see some of the other pieces here just dropped in to show you how you can put these together. You might come in here and drop in a bunch of wagons, things like that. Same map, but this time with a tavern and, other things that your players might explore depending on what your story tells. Right, here's the tavern. Your players can use the trapeze in here. You can have, NPCs kind of lining the place, watching on. This is just called the solstice spike. This idea, this huge spike, maybe that marks the solstice celebration. You can just use this to, have a big skirmish with your players, for example. And notice you can right-click these and change them to different colors. You can even go with a static version. The Haunted Fair shows you what these assets can look like when they're, when you add a little bit of, nighttime creepiness to it. But if we walk in here and our players run across this, it will lock the door behind them and it'll activate that, scary clown laugh. And so you could have some fun encounters here in this as well. If you need to reset this, there's a little reset over here on the side, and it will kind of reset everything back to normal, let your players out, that kind of thing. Now, the festival map is huge. you may not want to play this entire map. I mean, look, this is just one tent. You can see the scale of it is enormous. And so I set this up as a single map in case you like to play it that way, but I also split it into pieces. This map is a really cool map. It's got different large tents to explore. It looks great at night. It's got areas like this stage here, which I'll show you here in a second. All these vendors you can walk into, and you can decorate them in different ways that you'd like. So digging into the individual maps themselves, this is the merchant area where you can see, like, you can set up different kinds of merchants as you like. This is your stage. You can have some sort of performance going on. Your beer garden tent, the players can walk in, and it will temporarily, because of these active tiles, will play a background noise. These are invisible to your players. And then it'll go off after one cycle of that background noise. Your players can exit out the back. Maybe they're on the run from something else. You can build teleports, by the way, in between all these scenes as well if you want your players to freely explore it. I didn't try to overcomplicate it, but those are certainly easy to do, and I've got teleport tutorials in case you're curious. This is sort of a longer map. This is the merchant sort of bazaar, right? So your players can navigate through that. You've also got this big tent with these, these smaller tents out here that your players can go in and explore. The big tent itself features really a pretty flexible interior. That's just a tile. So if we click this a couple times, we can eventually get to our background tile, and we can replace that with something entirely different. So you can get creative in terms of what story you want to tell in the big tent. Tent Village is just another area where your players can explore. It comes with this small stage that they might encounter somebody performing. And they can go back here into this dressing room area. But things to explore, great place for NPCs, or maybe they get accosted, somebody steals something from them, that kind of thing. This is called the Circus Cult. So inside of this tent, right, you might leave this tent locked, and when your players access it, they get in here and they realize there's some sort of cultish activity, right? They've got these, like, I don't know, they're worshiping demonic clowns of some kind. But, they can even sit in this little chair, and there's an effect that goes on overhead. So anyway, just something to give you guys some storytelling capabilities. Those are tiles in the middle there, so you can change those to some other kind of content. And the last couple here, this is just the Merchant Fair. This is just another really flexible, I think really attractive map that is just interesting. Your players can navigate around and find NPCs or do something that's on a quest that they're on. But super simple, effective map. There's a well in the middle of it. And likewise, there's the Fair Expo. You can change some of the pieces here as well, but you've got this sort of area where an NPC can make some announcements. These are all like overhead tiles, and then they can come in here and they can see, like, there's a mimic inside of a cage. You can change that to something else, of course. This is something like a belly dancer room with kind of back rooms and things attached to it. Here's something, with a chair that, maybe has like a scrying ball or something like that. But just some inspiration to let you guys have fun with a scene like this. A couple of tents that they can go inside. So that's it for the 2D release. Stay tuned now for Swift to talk about 3D.
Hi guys, Swift here again to talk about the 3D part of the release for April 2024. This month we're going to be starting with having a look at some of the maps we've gotten, because they're looking pretty good this month, if I do say so myself. These first 3 maps were inspired by a adventure that's recently been released called the Dungeons of Drakkenheim. We took a read of that adventure. We thought it was really interesting, but we noticed that there were a few maps missing from the very start of the adventure. For example, one of the first things that can happen to the adventurers as they approach the adventure is they can get waylaid by some bandits on the road, and then that can either turn into a fight or they can talk their way past or so on. but we thought it could really do with a map, since there didn't seem to be one in the module for the adventure. And we thought, well, let's make it in 3D. So this map here has been made by Efant. We're calling it the Bandit Shakedown map. And as you can see, it's a dirt road through a narrow gorge sort of area, with plenty of places to hold up a caravan or a lone cart travelling through the area, making use of one of these wooden shacks here with a slope up to one of the raised areas, as well as other things like this bridge across the road here that someone could stand on, the cart blocking the passage, this tower up on the raised area over here. This map was made using a height map and then painted using the splat map feature, which is what allows us to have things like this road through here, or this ditch along the side of the road, for instance, full of like rocks and things. And overall, I'm really liking how this map came out. I do really like the fairly simple, fairly straightforward maps with fairly clear tactical interest to them. Like in this case, we've got elevation differences between the road and the areas surrounding the road, but then also things like difficult terrain, like these ditches, blocked paths like this cart over here, and then obviously structures around the place to kind of aid with moving around the battlefield. Like, for example, this ramp over here leading up to this bridge across the top, you know, the tower, that sort of thing. So that's the Bandit Shakedown map, overall looking pretty good. The second map here was made by Sevro, and this is another one inspired by Dungeons of Drakkenheim. In the initial part of the adventure, there's just a footnote, really, about how the party can track the bandits that attack them back to their hideout, which is a barn in a nearby farm. But again, there didn't seem to be a map or anything for it, so we thought, let's make a 3D version of a kind of barn encounter map. So the idea here is that the party are coming in to kind of track down the lair of the bandits, and they find a barn with a number of bandits hiding out there. The exact number obviously can vary. So this one here is using a piece of custom terrain here with splat map painting, of course, to give us the sort of muddy road areas and the area around the barn, and then, you know, the slope up the side here. And the barn is a new asset that we're just adding this month. It's really good to use with the clipping shader. If you enable it, set the height offset and so on, then that means when you come into the barn with a token, then the top part will be cut off automatically so that you can, you know, have encounters inside there without having to worry about things being in the way. It's rather convenient. Or, of course, you could just have the fight outside. There's plenty of space. Overall, though, I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. It's good to have very varied exterior maps like this, I think. You can use them for a wide variety of functions. The idea with the Dungeons of Drakkenheim bandit hideout, that's just one idea. You could, of course, use this for any number of things. Or even just clear off the barn entirely and then just use it as a kind of roadside campground sort of area. And this third map is one made by Violet. This is another one inspired by the Dungeons of Drakkenheim thing. One of the encounters, I won't spoil anything, but one of the early encounters is supposed to be at the party's campsite at night. But again, there was no map for it. So we thought, well, let's just make one then. So we've got a very simple map here. We've got a camp with a fire with the light shining out into the forest. And then beyond that, we've got the road lit by pale moonlight and a kind of mysterious obelisk in the distance there with a kind of purple light, because one of the features of that whole thing is that the area is corrupted by magic. But this is another one of those very straightforward, very simple maps that I think can have many, many different uses. And again, this was made using the splat map shader to kind of paint on the road to the terrain. This is the kind of thing that you can do inside 3D Canvas now, so you don't need any external tools or anything. You can literally just use the splat map tool and just paint directly onto the map, which I think is really cool, and I've loved seeing what people are making with it. But that was just a little series of 3 maps we thought we'd do, just to kind of have a go at making some maps that would fit into an adventure that already exists. Those 3 maps were just something we'd decided to try out, you know, a couple of maps tied together by a theme in this case, you know, this adventure. We've got a bunch of other maps, of course. So I'm going to start with, this is another map by Efant, which is the second floor of his Coaching Inn map, which you might remember from last month. This is designed to just go on top of the first floor of the Coaching Inn map, so things should connect up nicely. And as you can see here, we've got these really nicely detailed interiors here with fully furnished rooms. We've got the sort of bedroom here in the stairwell. Got the kind of larger group bedroom here. And of course, a kind of communal dining room for the guests round the back. And then some more bedrooms over here as well, including a bathroom. I do love this sort of map. because, you know, it's just a kind of really cozy kind of place for the party to be. It's very different to a lot of the kind of exterior battle maps we have, or the, you know, deep, dark, cold dungeons that we have. Here's a kind of little slice of civilization that nevertheless can provide a encounter map in case the adventurers are being pursued by dark forces, or if there's something untoward happening. This map in particular, I really rather like. And that does mean that we now have the exterior, the ground floor, and now this floor of the coaching inn, which I think is very nice. This next map up is another one by Sevro called The Masked Church, and it is a pretty great one, I think. We've got this interior church area here, many pews lined up very neatly, leading up to this lectern up at the top here with this big altar and the various windows around about. I think this is a pretty cool map on its own, but of course, there's a bit more to it than that. If we go over to the altar here, we can find out it's actually a secret door. And then if we have a peek down there, oh, I've already put a player token down there. If you send down one of your players, the upper parts of the church disappear, and then we've just got the underground area here, with, of course, the fully working fog of war and all that sort of thing. So we've got this whole dungeon underneath this church, behind this secret door, fully traversable and all that, with fully working doors. And it's an absolutely great kind of map. I really like how it's a bit of a surprise for people when they find that secret door. There we go, that's a bit more of a clear view here. So we've got this encounter room up at the back with the altar and so on. Pools of acid, great big sarcophagi with the openable doors, of course. A prison cell area. We've even got a natural cave up at the back here. And of course, various corridors in the middle here for adventurers to creep about in. Overall, I'm really liking this one. And this is another one by Sevro. This next map we've got up is another one of Sevro's. This is the Gorge Fortress, which, as you can see, is a structure built into this icy box canyon here, complete with freezing water down below, or maybe that is just solid ice, hard to tell. And of course, since it's a Sevro map, it's got some really nice interiors. So if we open this door here, and then slide our PC in, we've got a study. Got the desk with the various work pieces over there, the bookshelf, chests, that sort of thing. There's a door, out onto the bridge there, but there's also the stairs up to the roof, which of course, you just need to move your token around, and that'll automatically re-hide itself. Over on the other side, we've also got another interior. Let me just slide over here with Target. Yep, that's the way to do that. And if we open this door and slide on in, we've got a more sort of casual living area here. Nice fireplace on the end there. Shelves and all sorts down the way. So this is the kind of place that definitely seems to be more a kind of place someone lives rather than a military fortress. There's also this area at the back here with the storage area for the barrels. Could be the party are sneaking in via the back way. But overall, this is making good use of that kind of elevated dungeon set to make things that aren't necessarily dungeons. We've also got this tower up at the back here with the sort of spiral staircase. I really like this piece back here. He used it on one of his other maps as well in the past. It's great for a little bit of extra height on the opposite corner of the map from the kind of road that comes in over here. Overall, very nice map. I do like the look of it, and very flexible it is too. Let's look at the next one real quick. This one is called the Griffin Roost, and it starts down here at the port, as you can see. Got a bit of a ship docked up there. And if we scroll up a bit, we can start to see why it's called the Griffin Roost. We've got a fortress here on this island in the middle of the ocean, complete with a nest of various griffins dotted about the place. This is a kind of non-traditional use of all the castle pieces I really like, rather than making, you know, a typical fortress with walls around the central kind of court area. We've just got this fortress that's built up on top of this hill in the middle of an island. Obviously, the griffins are from the mini compendium. These ones are tokens, so technically they'd be something like, you know, statues or the like. But you could replace those with either griffin tokens or with any other monster of your own devising. I kind of like the idea of them being statues myself, and, you know, the Griffin Roost being a kind of historic name for this sort of place. It does make it a bit more flexible for what you can put in here. And of course, we've got some interiors in here too. because you've got to have a little bit of interior action for these sort of maps. Something we've also done with this map and some of the other maps we've done is that rather than using levels and all that sort of thing to clip out bits of the interior as tokens go underneath them, we're just using the clipping shader for them, which is much easier to set up, so, you know, people can use it on their own maps. So if you get a token and just move it in here, it means that it cuts away the wall so you can see straight through, and we use levels to cut out the upper areas of the stairs here. So we can see here we've got the sort of dining area, fireplace, that sort of thing. But then if we move our token up to the top of the stairs, the upper floor comes into view, and you can see the beds in the floor and all that sort of thing. With the clipping shader, you can set the distance from the token that it clips. So if you don't like the fact that the wall reappears over here, you could increase the radius, for instance. You could also change how the edge of the wall appears. We've got a kind of wavy looking effect, which looks kind of interesting, but you might prefer it more smooth, for instance, which you can do in the shader. But the main advantage is it allows you to take any object and make it into a kind of building that your tokens can move around the interior of without having to do any complicated setup for it. So that's rather cool. Overall, though, this is the Griffin Roost map, so I'm looking forward to what your guys do with it. I do have a bit of a soft spot for island fortresses like this one, a kind of daring assault by a party of adventurers. Or, of course, being defended by a party of adventurers is always good as well, whether this is the location of a climactic showdown or just an entrance to another deep, dark dungeon. We've also got an alternate version of the Griffin Roost here. This one's set up as a nighttime map with a bit of rain going on. Overall, same map, as you can tell, but all the torches are lit using the fire effect here, and we've got this rain effect coming down from above. We're also making use of the new dynamic skies as well, which I think are a great addition to 3D Canvas. The moving clouds over the starfield really kind of sell the look of the map, I think, from low angles like this one. But like we say, this is just a variant of the last map, so let's have a look at the next one. And here we are at the Great Span, which is something that every adventure needs, really. A massive bridge over a great river with the statues of ancient kings on either side of it. In this case here, a very sort of sturdy-looking Gothic bridge with a nice wide top here for any sort of encounter. I think bridges are one of those things that are really quintessentially fantasy, because you see something like this, and it's not like anything you would see in the real world, but it's really cool. So regardless of any concerns about practicality or the like, we've got to have our massive bridges. In terms of the map itself, though, very simple, very straightforward. I do rather like that sort of thing. And with very clear use cases for what sort of encounters you might have on it. We've also got another variant of this map, and we've got the ruined version of the Great Span. Same map, though presumably sometime after. Maybe after the events of the previous map, or something that's happened off-screen. I think maps like this really make you think about the kind of tactical opportunities provided by dirty great holes in the ground. Things like the shove action, normally quite useful. Maps like this, potentially deadly. And of course, you can use it against the players too. So definitely the kind of thing I approve of. As before, very straightforward, very simple map. Very obvious use cases. Just with a bit more danger to it, a bit more drama. So definitely a good one, I think. These next couple of maps are from Violet, and they're from a school setting that they're working on. They've been making some 3D maps for it. Starting with this one here, the study room. Quite self-explanatory, as you can see. We've got a whole load of bookshelves, a whole load of tables and chairs, and then a place for the librarian or study supervisor or whoever to sit. Very straightforward, very simple map. And of course, in normal Violet fashion, we've got a little bit of interactivity in here too. We've got this cube at the back. When you click on that, it activates this secret door here. And what that'll do is be either a transition to another map, or you could, of course, just build something behind that there. And for this current version here, nothing quite there. So area transition is probably the easiest thing to do. But, you know, can't have a library without a secret door. It's the law. Let's have a look at the next one. This one is the bathroom, as you might be able to tell. Something I quite like about this map is just the fact that with a little bit of blue lighting and then a little bit of blue texturing and all that, and with, you know, pale textures like these ones here, you get a really kind of aquatic air to the place, which might be a bit over the top, but I think some exaggeration is really good in things like tabletop games, especially in things like virtual tabletop stuff. You really want to be clear and kind of show people what kind of mood you're looking to elicit. This one's another fairly straightforward one. We've got, you know, series of cubicles with toilets and so on in them, as well as some bathing areas here, sinks and mirrors in the back. All in all, rather cool. And then some decorative dragon statues because, of course, it's a magic school. You can't have a bathroom go unadorned if you're making a magic school now, can you? And let's look at the third map. And this map is the potions room. Very, very purple in here. We've got a large cauldron in the middle here, desks with smaller cauldrons around the sides, various bookshelves and alchemical supplies and all that sort of thing surrounding it. And then round the back, we've got things like this storage room here, accessed by these buttons on the side. These are using the old-style 3D canvas doors, so they turn transparent when you've activated them. The players will be able to see through them, but since we're the GM, you can still see them here. But that gives you access to the storage room round the back. We've got some effects on the main cauldron with this button here. And then we've got 2 poison traps as well. Being spit out by these boar statues. So, presumably, this school has defenses. We turn those back off. But again, very cool map from Violet here. I really love the interactivity they put into their maps here. They really kind of bring life to the whole place. Speaking of, let's have a quick look at the inventory scene for this month. And let's have a quick look at most of the assets we'll be adding in this month. This month we've got a bit of a theme of a kind of rural medieval village type setup. Maybe kind of Viking style or rudimentary camps out on the frontier kind of thing. We've got variants of each of them, of course. We've got things like basic huts and then ruined versions, where the thatch and all that has sort of worn away and left behind a shell. A couple of different versions. We've also got snowy variants of most of it as well, because it's intended to be used in wintry kind of environments. Got a more kind of low-down hut here with a brick wall with the thatch roof over the top of it. And then, a couple of different versions of this. Various smaller huts that would be more for kind of storage or just for individual kind of camping arrangements. And then, bits to edit the walls on those as well, like the extensions to the walls, awnings, that sort of thing. Over here in the center, we have platforms as well as stairs to get up to them. Right now, they're obviously way up on top of their legs here, but the theory with this is you could shrink it right down, and then you could have this sort of thing, say, across a swamp, for instance. If I just make a copy of that, attach that on there, move it around a little bit, we've got ourselves a rather nice walkway over, anything we should like. We've also got things like walls and pieces of platform as well that can go onto the side of these or underneath them, as well as stone walls for extending the edge of the kind of area, village, encampment, structure, that sort of thing, fences and all that as well. To go with all this, as well as the main structures that we have here, we've also got, a collection of smaller pieces of decor, a couple of statues on the back there, as well as general furniture like bedrolls, benches, tables and chairs, various sort of drapes and curtains, hammocks, and then a whole load of itty-bitty pieces of branches, twigs, sticks, planks, bricks, bits of bone, this sort of thing. These are really intended to be, scattered around the place, used as a bit of decor to make a map a bit less flat. And then we've got lanterns as well. So overall, I'm quite liking this set. I do like this style of structure, and I think it's got a lot of potential uses, either as distant encampments or simple villages or that sort of thing. Or even considering things like these walls and these platforms, you could combine these to make fortifications. So if you've got a simple palisade of a fort built up by an army that's on the march, for instance, put up very quickly, kind of Roman style, that could be quite cool. It is also quite compact. As you can see here, we've got, very, very small pieces. Previously, I would have avoided using these just because they're very, very small and fiddly. But I think it's kind of worth adding in things like this as an extra tool for map makers, as we're making maps, or as our community making maps, or as the guys like Efant, Violet, and Sevro are making maps. I'm kind of hoping that we'll see some real nice detail with these added in here. But yeah, so that's a quick look at the 3D side of the update for this month. I'd love to see what you guys end up doing with it, as well as hearing any sort of thoughts, opinions, that sort of thing on these maps, what sort of maps you'd like to see, what sort of assets you'd like to see, if you'd like us to add any more props or any styles of props or that sort of thing. That would be really helpful to us as well. So if you've got anything to say, comment below or in the Discord as previously, and I'll see you guys later.
In terms of the Dungeondraft release, lots and lots of stuff in this that went into the current release. You can see all of like the different awnings and barrels and stuff that comes in the Carnival release. As always, if you're using Essential Utils mod and you click on one of these, you can say show object info. You can see this comes from the new Carnival and Circus pack and what the asset's actual name is in case you're looking for this later. All of these are scaled up and down. Many of these are colorable. Lots of new curtains. You've got these sort of different kinds of top-down curtains. This is recolorable. These are all recolorable. You also have all of these curtains that come in walls and paths as well. So you can really draw walls inside of your tents really easily. Merchants and vendors. These were all used and ultimately kit bashed from the same assets that you're seeing here. But you can pop them in, recolor them as you like. Other kinds of merchant bases, right? So the idea is that you would put canopies on top of these, but these can help you form the base of different merchant stalls really, really easily. Again, anything in red being colorable. And you even have, some merchant shelving that you can put in that's also recolorable. Recolorable stage. You have a new rope path that's really nice. Some net patterns that you can play with. All of the different wagons, these different wagons that are colorable and non-colorable, all of the different wagon covers. These are super attractive, recolorable as well. And there's also versions that are not recolorable. You've got all the different pieces for, bears and balls and, all these components here for if you want to come in and make your own carnival or circus components. A lot of the pieces that you've seen elsewhere in the release and all of your clowns. Here's all of our awnings, the different components for your tents, all the nets, cages, different kinds of tables, picnic tables, seating, all of the new barrels, all the new circus components, which Zephyr will go into more detail here in just a second. We also have all of these, what I call fabric tents. These are all in the base 01 artificial release, just because these are more usable than just outside of Circus and Carnival. These are super flexible. You can put them into scenes and just immediately add a bunch of detail with all like the vendor stuff. Wood pillars, lots of applications for these. They're in different sort of angles as well, from very little angle to very sort of extreme angle, useful in different capacities. All of the rugs, the bear rugs, there's even some covered crates and things like that. These are all colorable. Really just a ton of useful stuff in this release. And then, of course, all of these things in play. So you can see how all of these things were used. So you can come in here, check this out. I am using a new mod. This one's called Dropshadower. I'll do a tutorial if you guys want me to, but it's the same developer that did Essential Utils, and it creates drop shadows for things. So if I grab this here and I say Drop Shadow Editor and I enable it, I move this around, you can see it creates a drop shadow. If I decrease its strength a little bit, it's a really compelling and fun way to do drop shadows. You can put the drop shadow behind the object or actually behind the whole layer that the object is on. So I find it really helpful when you're trying to create layers of maps and you want these things to look like they really are layered on top of each other. So you're going to want to get that mod and install it if you want to see some of the drop shadows render in here. But otherwise, this is just all of those pieces, all done in a map that you can come in and play around with. You can also see how I did the terrains, all the background terrains. So come in here and learn how I do this stuff, and then make it your own. You can also create your own interiors for your tents. You can see how I did these interiors. And you can see that I oftentimes cover them with patterns, and that helps just make sure that I'm framing them up properly so that I can then export them and just delete all the white, for example. Lots of fun stuff to discover in here. How I use these different things to make different kinds of visuals and stuff like that. Some of the components and more interiors. Sometimes you'll get to a scene like this and wonder what's going on. If you turn on your terrain brush, you can often see that I've done some terrain mixing inside here because I like to get my terrain sort of mixed up a little bit. I think it makes for a more interesting background. I just love this scene. This is the template scene that you saw on the VTT side, but you can come in here and see how I made this and, you know, convert it to your own map, really kind of laying in, whatever kind of interior you want if you want to take this template and build on it. And next up, Zephyr's going to give you the rest of the Dungeondraft release.
New in the Baileywiki Assets A Dungeondraft pack, we have a variety of assets to support the Circus release. All of these are going to be found in the BW Circus tag, and we'll also have the tags on screen as per usual. And in the Assets A release map, you can also find all of these with their tags appropriately. First up, we have some storage. We have some baskets here. You can find it as a composite, and then also the interior and the top. And then you can have it either stabbed with some swords or filled with a snake. The swords are also available in the modular weapons tag, and you can use that to either customize the basket further or create your own effects. And the snakes are also available as creatures. There are a few different games you might find at a circus, such as the strength tester, and for that, there are some toys that players can win, some tools for tending to hay and straw, and then a variety of different circus accoutrement in the form of juggling pins, knives and boxes, and also balls and trampolines. And of course, we have that aforementioned hay and straw, some exercise equipment for your strongman show, and some cotton candy for concessions. Almost all of these include a colorable version that you can alter and make it suit your needs, as you've come to expect from the Assets A pack here. The balls, boxes, and trampolines are strategically colorable so that you can keep the main motif while altering the other colors to suit your needs. Then, if we've got some animals involved, we have some cages and enclosures here. These are available in kind of a more plain boxcar setup, both with and without shadows, and in a variety of components. And there's also a more colorful version available for these, and of course you can color your own. Then to support that, we have some new paths. We have a new metal chain path. This is metal chain path number 2, and it looks more like linked chain as opposed to a gear chain. We have some railing that matches the rails and the walls of the cages. And then we also have a brand new pattern in the form of metal grate number 5 that replicates the cage tops. In addition to all the new circus assets, we also have updated textures for all of our stone chests. So the same shape and size is going to replace all of them with new textures and line work to match some of our more recent updates. And that's going to conclude all of the new additions for the Baileywiki Assets A pack in Dungeondraft. Again, you can check out all of the tags in this release or review them on screen. As always, let us know what you'd like to see us work on next.
Okay, so that's it for the release. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments what you find particularly compelling, if you feel like it gave you ideas for something else that we should be working on. A lot of this release actually was inspired by Joby. Joby, who runs the Familiars, I'll link in the description. That's a live play game that he hosts as the GM, and you've seen Joby do a ton of stuff on this channel already. But he pinged me a while back and said, "Hey, I need a circus tent," and that led to a whole release that was kind of circus and fair and carnival themed. So I hope you guys get a lot out of this, and thank you so much, everybody, for supporting our channel. If you made it this far, we really, really appreciate you, and we hope that this inspires you to do really fun things. And of course, as always, we hope you have fun making your maps.